So here inside this component, I don't want to use view or window, so you can delete it if required. I want to make this component as faceless, so you have to delete, you can delete your window as well as a view. So now in component controller, we have to create interface node. So you can right click and you can create a node that is iTab, for example, and I want to get the data from VBAK table, cardinality 0 to n, but these two properties are important. That is, interface node, you make it as yes. Input element also, you make it as yes. Then only you can transfer data from this component 1 to component 2. So this is what I was highlighting yesterday. So let me continue here by adding attributes. So select the required fields. So it's very important, just observe. This is a node and it is also acting as an interface node. Remember that. You will get special symbol, node as well as special symbol as interface node. And this node will be available in interface controller also. When you create interface node, that node will be automatically visible under interface controller. You will get automatically here. You can see that. Just remember this point. In interface controller, the nodes and attributes, the nodes and methods which are selected as interface, those things will be visible in interface controller automatically. So remember this. So we have created in component controller with special properties, but that is available automatically under interface controller here. You can see this. Now similarly, I'll try to create one method in component controller. So you can create one method here, say for example execute MD. And this method, as I said, I want to make it as interface method. So you have to select this checkbox. So you have to select this particular method as interface checkbox here. So when you select this method as interface checkbox, then that method is considered as interface method. And that method will be available in interface controller here. It will participate in interface controller also here. You can see this. It is participating because it is created as interface method. Interface nodes and interface methods. Interface nodes and interface methods. So interface nodes and interface methods both will be visible under interface controller. So that is what we have done just now. In component controller, I have created a node with interface node checkbox here. And in component controller, I have created a method with interface checkbox. You can see this. This is what we have done, and that's the reason why they are available in interface controller. Node is available and method is available in interface controller. And let me implement some logic in interface method here. Go to execute MD. and you can implement some logic here. Fetch the data and bind the data to iTab node. This is a normal functionality. You can fetch the data and bind the data to iTab node. So I'm trying to use wizard, context, iTab node. I'm using set plus table. It's a common story, and you can write your select query here to fetch the data. Just we have written a select query, and then we are binding the data. So component 1 is ready now. So component 1 is ready, and it is a faceless component. Remember that. Component 1 is ready, and it is a faceless component because we have not designed any view. Just we have written logic. Now the point is, let us create component 2. Let us create component 2. So just first of all activate component 1. Let me activate component 1 first. Now after activating, let us create component 2. After activating, let us create component 2. So let me open a new session. CIT Z online class underscore comp2. Sorry. Online class underscore comp2. And I want to create window 2 as well as view 2. So you can see this. Now what you need to do is just remember this here. In this example, data should be transferred from comp1 to component 2. Remember that. So to transfer data from first component to second component, first of all, you have to create a node such that it can receive the data. Component 1 is sender here, and component 2 is receiver. It has to receive the data. So in receiver side also the node should be created. Remember that. So in receiver side also the node should be created. So that's the reason why I'm going to second component controller to receive the data. Let us create a node here. What are the fields we have taken here? In first component, the same fields we can take it to receive the data. You can right click here. Say for example iTab, node name with the dictionary structure VBAK, cardinality 0 to n. While receiving the data, the node can be general node. You need not create interface node. It can be general to receive the data. So add attributes from structure, select the fields. So let me check what the fields we have selected, NET. Okay. So these are the receiving purpose. Now, after receiving the data, you have to send it to view 2. So let me maintain context mapping here. After receiving, you have to receive the data to view 2. So drag drop. It's a context mapping. But this type of mapping is internal. It is an internal context mapping. Till today, we have done only internal mapping. So after receiving the data, where you want to show the data? So that you can design in layout. Let me create one table for displaying the data. Select iTab. Just select iTab, then continue. Okay, now you have to think about how to transfer data from first component to second component. So if you want to transfer data from 1 to 2, first of all, in component 2, place component 1 in component usages. In component 2, you have to reuse. You have to reuse component 1 in component usages. So to do that, double click here. If you double click component 2, you'll get one option here. Component usages, you can see right side. Component usages. In component usages, you provide your component 1 name. Z online class underscore comp 1. The same reference name you provide here. This is the description, this is the actual component name. But the point is, we are using component 1 inside component 2. We are using component 1 inside component 2 by using component usages. So let us save it now. Just save it. When you save it, you can see component 1 is participating here inside component 2. And inside component 1, its interface control is also participating. Interface control is also participating. Component 1 is participating inside component 2. So now next step is maintain external context mapping. For transferring data from component 1 to component 2 via interface controller. So this is the next step. We have to maintain external context mapping for transferring data from one component to another component, and this is done via interface controller. So you can see, double click on interface controller. You can double click on interface controller here. So you'll get iTab node of component 1. So you have to maintain external mapping between interface controller of component 1 with component controller of component 2. So here you have to maintain context mapping. That is nothing but external context mapping you have to maintain. To maintain external context mapping between interface control of component 1 and component control of component 2. This is an important step. So let me do that here. You have to choose controller usage. There is a button here, controller usage. When you select that, it will open component controller of second component. It will open component controller of second component here. So you can see just what you need to do is drag and drop. To receive the data, just drag and drop from iTab to iTab. Here, you have to drag drop iTab node to iTab node. So this is nothing but external mapping. So you can see there is a message at the bottom. External mapping is defined. At the bottom of the screen, external mapping, you can see that message is available. So external mapping, you'll get two links here. One link pointing to left side, one link pointing to right side. So this screenshot, this is the screen where external mapping is taking place. So now, go to View to create one button. Right click, insert one element, choose one button. Say for example, get data. And go to action, get data. So in get data action, what you need to do? In get data action, you have to call method of first component. You have to call the execute method of first component, and execute method is already created as interface method. So before we proceed this step, if you want to call any interface method of one component into another component, if you want to call any interface method of one component into another component, you have to follow certain preconditions. Preconditions for calling interface method. Precondition. So first of all, you have to go to this one. You have to go to properties, view to properties. In view to properties, select controller usage. There is a button, select controller usage, and you have to choose interface controller reference. You have to choose interface controller reference of component 1, because I want to call method of that component 1. So you have to place that here. Here you can see it is updated. Interface control of component 1 must be placed here, then only you can call interface method. Select interface controller of component 1. This is the first precondition you need to satisfy. This is condition 1. And condition 2, activate component 1 inside the memory. inside the memory, you have to activate component 1 using WD doInit method. You have to activate component 1 inside the memory by using WD doInit method. So let us do that. I am going to WD doInit method. Here you can see that. So if you want to activate component 1 inside the memory, so you have to use code wizard here and choose general, and you can see third option, instantiate option. Instantiate is the option to activate component inside the memory. So you can choose that, and you have to choose your component 1 here. So component 1, so it will write the code automatically here. It will try to activate component 1 in the memory. It will try to check whether component 1 is active in the memory. If it is not active, then it will activate in the memory. So this is compulsory step. Let me write the procedure. Go to WD doInit method and choose wizard plus general plus instantiate option. This is the first time we are using. Instantiate is the option you have to use. Instantiating is nothing but activating component in the memory. That's it. This is the second precondition. After doing that, now third one is directly you can call the method. Now we are ready to call interface method. Now we are ready to call interface method. That interface method name is nothing but executeMD of component 1. After completing those first two steps, first two conditions, now you are ready to call any interface method of that particular component 1. So let me do that here. Let us go to our action. We have created getData action. So now you have to call this. You have to call the interface method of component 1 into component 2. So to do this, you can directly use wizard. You should not use like this, WD-CYMP controller. It will not work here because our method is not in the same component. Our method is in another component. So you should not use this. So directly use wizard, general. In general, you can see second option, method call in used controller. And here you have to choose the controller. You can see interface controller you have to choose related to component 1. You can see component 1, component 2. But interface method is under interface controller of component 1. So you have to select that. First option. Now it is very simple. After selecting which method you want to call, that you can select here. Our executeMD is internal interface method, so select that method. That's it. executeMD. So this is the procedure for calling method of one component into another component. So it is calling execute method of interface controller of component 1. You can see that here. It is calling execute method of interface controller of component 1. You can see that here. So this is a procedure to call any interface method. And external mapping, here we have done it. We have already done external mapping in this area. Here, from here to here. Interface control of component 1, external mapping with component control of component 2. So here, let me write the steps. Go to get data action. Use wizard plus general plus you can use method call in used controller and choose interface controller of that component 1 and select that execute method. That's it. This is a final step. This is a procedure whenever you want to call execute method, whichever it is, if it is an interface method. So these are the steps you have to remember. So let me test it now. You can activate component 2. Activate component 2 and create application for component 2. And component 2 internally uses component 1. Remember that. You have to activate component 2 and create application for component 2, but component 2 is internally using component 1. So let us right click on component 2, create application. Once if you practice, this is very simple. So here you can see button and table is available. But when I click on button, data is coming from first component to second component here. That's the only difference. And your execute method is triggered from second component, but it is calling method of first component. These are the two things that is happening internally. Your data is coming from second component and execute method is triggered related to second component. Sorry, I'm just telling the reverse order. Data is transferred from component 1 to component 2. That is happening when you click on, when user clicks on get data action. That is one thing is happening. And moreover, execute method, in the bracket I can say it is interface method of component 1 is triggered from component 2. So these two things are happening. So I mean to say, in this example, two components are involved. So that type of technique we call it as componentization. So on get data action, the conclusion whatever I gave, so that is happening internally behind this application. So when you click on get data here, so you are getting the data, but these are the two things that are happening internally in this example. So just remember that. So what I'll do is, I'll repeat this entire procedure now. Within 5 to 10 minutes, I'll repeat this entire example again. Hello students, so just concentrate. I'm repeating that entire example from beginning to end. So just observe these screens. So let me log in. So I'm repeating. So just let me log in here. So I'm creating first component with some window as well as a view. This is one of the technique. You can right click and you can delete if you don't want to use. So then this component becomes faceless component because no screen is designed. So it becomes faceless component. This is one of the technique. Got the point? Or else what you can do is you can also do like this. You can also do like this. Let me go to SEIT. For creating faceless component, there is alternative technique. For creating faceless component, so here you provide your component name, and here this is important screen. Instead of choosing WebDim Pro component, if you want to create a faceless component, directly go to WebDim Pro component interface. So faceless component is nothing but WebDim Pro component interface. Just recognize, students. is also known as component interface. Remember that. So component interface does not contain any view or window. That's the point. Here you can see I am selecting. Earlier we have selected, till today we have selected WebDim Pro component. Now I am selecting WebDim Pro component interface. So window will not be available, view will not be available. So it becomes faceless now. But you can write the logic. So you can see this. Okay, so you can use any technique here. So here you can see I'm going to component controller. You can right click and you create a node. This node I'm trying to make iTab, and from this component one I want to transfer data to second component, so select these two properties. Interface node and input element. Both properties should be selected. You can see those things. And cardinality 0 to n, dictionary structure VBAK. So you choose the required fields. And here you can see special symbol is available. And go to methods, you create one execute MD. And you select this execute MD as interface checkbox. You can see this. You have to make this method as interface checkbox here. You can see that. And you implement the logic here. Go to wizard. And I want to bind the data to iTab. So use set plus table. That's a very common story. And here you can use a select statement. You write whatever the logic you want, then activate this component. So component 1 is ready now. So let us observe here, when you create interface node and interface method, they will participate in interface controller. Don't forget that. This is an interface node participating in interface controller. You can see execute MD. This is also participating because it is interface method. Now you have to think about component 2. Let us go to SEIT. At least now you'll get, second time when I'm repeating, you'll get some clarity. So I'm creating this as second component. And let us create one window. Say for example, window to view 2. So now for receiving the data, you have to maintain the same node structure. From component 1, you have to receive data to component 2. So you have to have the receiver node. So create one node. This is for receiving the data. Add attributes from structure. Select the fields. Now assume that after receiving the data, I want to display in view 2. So go to view 2 context. So drag drop iTab node. This is internal context mapping, because both controllers belongs to same component. So by using the iTab, let us create the table. Wizard, select table, context binding with iTab node, then continue. So table is created. Now let us create one button. So let me create one button here. some action, get data. Let us create one action, get data. Now, before calling our execute method, I told you, you have to perform some preconditions. Before calling interface method, you have to perform these preconditions. And moreover, you have to maintain external mapping. And before that, you have to reuse component 2 inside component 1. Sorry, you have to reuse component 1 inside component 2 by using component usages. So let me do that. Let us reuse the component. Double click component 2. And here in component usages, you have to provide your component 1. Z online 1 underscore comp 1. Some description you can provide. This is what you need to provide. Component 1 is used inside component 2. And left hand side it is updated here. You can see that. Component 1 is participating and its interface control is also participating. Inside component 2 it is participating. So go to view to now and now think about, sorry, you have to perform external mapping. We have done this. Now you have to perform external mapping. So go to interface controller now, this option. And there is iTab, so choose controller usage and select your component controller of second component to receive the data. Component 2 has to receive the data, so select that. And you can just try to drag and drop here. Just drag and drop, so when you drag and drop, this type of mapping, we call it as external context mapping. In this screen, external mapping is taking place. So save it. So we have done this. Now you have to think about preconditions for calling interface method. You have to do all these things. Condition 1, condition 2. Then you have to call your interface method. So let us do all those things. First of all, go to properties, view to properties, and choose controller usage. There is a create option here and select your interface controller of component 1 because interface method is available in interface control of component 1. So you have to select that. So it will be updated here. If you do like this, then only it is possible to call interface method of that component 1. Now go to WD doInit method and you have to activate your component in the memory. Component 1 inside the memory. Activate component 1 inside the memory, and this can be done through wizard. Go to wizard, select general and instantiate option. You have to choose instantiate option and choose your component 1. Choose instantiate option and you have to choose component 1 because component 1 should be activated before you receive the data. So it will generate the code for you. Then let us go to get data action. Let us go to get data action and here you have to call interface method. Of component 1. Component 1 contains interface method that you have to trigger here. So you need not write the code. Directly go to wizard, select method call in used controller. You have to select method call in used controller and you have to choose interface controller of component 1. You have to choose interface controller of component 1 because interface method is in that component. And you have to call the execute method. That's a final step. Select execute MP. So you can observe the coding here. Execute method of interface controller belonging to component 1 is triggered. So you can notice that code. Just activate your component 2 and test it. So this is a procedure. And as I said earlier, when you click on get data, these two things are taking place. You can refer that. Let me create one application. Save it. So you can right click and test it. So on get data, you will get the data from first component, and execute method is triggered from first component. So these two things are taking place. So you should have clarity on how to use multiple components. It's very important example. So what I'll do is next class on Monday, I'll be introducing some object-oriented concepts. So what I'll do is we'll discuss object-oriented ABAP basics. Then we'll try to make use of object-oriented in WebDyn Pro. We are going to do all these things, object-oriented in WebDyn Pro. This is with MVC architecture. We are going to discuss MVC architecture along with object-oriented programming. And then after completing all these object-oriented things, we'll try to discuss something like dynamic programming and something like enhancements. Again, these are part of WebDyn Pro. And ALV integration in WebDyn Pro. All these are WebDyn Pro topics. And ALV integration. So this is how we'll proceed further. So before we start remaining WebDyn Pro concepts, you should have some basics of object-oriented programming. So that I'll introduce from Monday onwards. First we'll discuss all object-oriented basics, and then we'll go with MVC architecture in WebDyn Pro. Then we'll go for dynamic programming, enhancements, integration. And in object-oriented basics, I'll be discussing all something like static methods, instance methods, static variables, instance variables, and inheritance, something like polymorphism, interfaces, final method, abstract method, everything I'll be discussing. You need not worry. After discussing all object-oriented things, we'll go back again to WebDyn Pro for discussing the remaining concepts like this. And apart from that, there are several other topics. Okay, just I'm writing some important topics. So that is how we'll move forward. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can send a mail to me. Okay, I'm running out of time. You can send a mail to me, I'll respond. And our next class will be on Monday with all these object-oriented things. Is it okay?
No.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, did you understand the pattern? Did you understand what I'm telling? Hello?
Yeah, I understand, but FPM have some of the topics.
That's what several other topics means. Other feeder classes will come later. In FPM, one topic is left over, that is feeder classes. So that will come after discussing POWL.
And FPM is mobile. There's some chip is there. What is that?
Mobile or chips? Chips integration, I'll tell all those topics I'm not highlighting at this level. After completing completing these
Okay,
ALB
that is
integration,
great,
we'll go further. Don't worry. Did you understand my point?
Okay,
We
Vijay,
are
can you
going to
please send
discuss
me the
other topics,
registration form?
several other topics like
Yeah,
pivot
yeah,
WL
absolutely.
and BRF and chips integration. That is part of our syllabus. Don't worry. But what I'm saying is, before we proceed further,
Okay,
I
that's
want
great.
to speak about object-oriented programming. Then only you can understand the remaining topics.
Yeah, yeah, that is main thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, understand. Vijay, can you please send me the registration form, Ricardo?
Registration form?
Yeah, one more topic, the fourth, he was discussed regarding the some topics.
I sent, right,
Registration
last class example I've sent, right,
form.
video
No,
file I
if you
sent
can,
to everyone.
last class we get, last class is nothing but that, right now whatever you discussed regarding that. The
Okay.
before class we did not get for me.
I think I sent all the things, whichever I have. Or did you remember the date?
Fourth.
Fourth?
I will share. I have the details.
Okay, so, okay, fine. I think for remaining people, I think you got everything, right? Whatever I'm speaking here, you got everything, right?
Yeah, some of the video don't have voice. That's all.
Okay, that was long back. Video problem, that was long back. But recently, whatever I said, everything you got, right? Videos.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Okay, if you have any problem,
Except
please
fourth
share it
class.
with others. Those who are having any problem with video, please share it with others. But from my side, I sent all the videos which I have and which I've discussed.
Okay, I'm not get the fourth class. Actually, this one fourth class I did not get.
Kalyan, you wanted. Okay, I think Kalyan is having class 12. So just Ranjit, you,
Kalan, could you please share me the class? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sunil has shared with me. I'll do it, okay? I'll send it to you.
okay, but students, so
Okay,
what I'm saying is, whatever I discussed, I think I've shared with you, right? Is anything pending
Yes,
except
sir.
today's class?
No, sir.
Except today's class, I think I shared everything, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we'll meet our next. We'll have our next class on Monday. Is it okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, fine. Vijita, is it okay for you? Are you able to follow the things? Vijita, are you able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is everything okay? That means all
Yes, sir.
exam
I'm
days
able
are
to
easy.
follow.
What about previous examples?
Sir, I'll mail you if I have any doubts.
Okay, fine.